Those who know me and have followed this channel for long know just how passionate I am when it comes to Disneyland Paris's Space Mountain. Its history with all the versions that never came to be, its construction, and obviously the original version from the Earth to the Moon, inspired by the Verne novel with the same name. For years, I've dreamt and imagined what the end of Star Wars Hyperspace Mountain would mean, what a new story could Imagineers tell, and how could the ride be updated having more than 30 years of wear and tear. Well, after many years shouting for the park to bring back the moon, finally Disney has announced that a new version will come, and in today's video we will explore everything we know, imagine a little to fill the gaps, and of course look at the rumors and speculate, because a new Space Mountain is finally on the horizon. And while the battle has ended, now comes the fun part. So let's get into it. At 3:30 AM, I, like many others all around the world, was looking at my TV with Disney Plus streaming the Horizons Parks panel, where all the news for the Disney parks around the world were being announced. One of the first things Neil Patrick Harris did was sit down with Mark Rober and Imagineer Alfred Rubenstein, and to my surprise, they were here to discuss two Space Mountains. The Japanese park demolished the old one is now building a brand new attraction to take its place, a more thrilling and exciting version. However, when it comes to thrills, none come close to Paris, and this is where the Imagineers then went. So let's start by analyzing everything Disney actually announced. Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune is confirmed as the name of the future ride. To do so, Hyperspace Mountain will close at the end of 2027 for a refurbishment over several months, and what replaces it is a return to the original Jules Verne story that made this attraction one of the most unique and beloved roller coasters on the planet. Let me be clear about what this is and what it isn't, because it's important. This is not a complete reimagining in the way Tokyo is doing it. Disney is very clear that this is a refurbishment of the existing attraction, bringing back the original theme while taking the opportunity to significantly enhance it with more than 30 years of technological advancement. Beyond extensive technical work and maintenance upgrades, and we'll get into what that might mean in a minute, the indoor sets and props will be completely renovated, the queue is being redesigned, and new effects will be added throughout. The iconic blast sequence will receive special effect enhancements, and the trains will once again be visible from the queue inside the mountain, with the return of the Stellar Way, now called Spacewalk, drawing guests deeper into the story as you wait, which was one of the most atmospheric elements of the original that was sadly lost along the way. However, that one used to be different, as inside the mountain the queue and the Stellar Way coexisted, so you could go in there and watch the trains wrap around you at great speeds, even if you weren't intending on riding. The Stellar Way closed down as a fast-pass queue took its place. As I don't imagine Premier Access going anywhere anytime soon, I expect the Spacewalk to be exclusively for the queue. Now, one of the things I am personally most excited about is the music. Steve Bramson's score is coming back, fully remastered. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go and find a recording of the original Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune soundtrack and just listen to it. The orchestral sweep as the launch begins is one of the most perfectly executed pieces of musical storytelling in any theme park attraction ever created. The fact that we'll once again fill Discoveryland when guests queue for this ride is more emotional for me than I care to admit. I still can't really wrap my head around the fact that I will finally be able to hear the orchestral score while riding Space Mountain, because as huge of a fan I am of the original attraction, I actually never rode it, and that's something that I think many fans that are going crazy with these news can relate to. That just proves how special Space Mountain was. What I find interesting is how Disney is framing the project. Keith Rector, Senior Manager of Creative Art Direction at Walt Disney Imagineering Paris, described it as both an honor and an exciting challenge, saying that while staying true to the spirit and legacy of the original voyage, this new version will make use of all the innovations and cutting-edge technology introduced over the years. That framing tells you something important. They are using the original as a foundation and building something that a new generation of guests will experience as fresh, while those who remember the original will recognize everything they love about it. Knowing this, the original attraction isn't coming back, but a new version heavily inspired by it, with deep roots in the novel written by Jules Verne. So much so that a version of the poster for the ride, shared by a member of the communications team at Disneyland Paris, actually shows Verne looking at the starry sky. With this, I wonder if he will have a more important role in this new version. Disney also connected this project to what they are calling the New Magic Initiative, an ambitious program aimed at improving the guest experience and refreshing classic attractions across Disneyland Paris. The additions of the Rivers of the Far West that I covered in my last construction update are part of this same initiative, and there are several other projects at different stages of development that will be unveiled in phases. Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune, when it reopens sometime in the future, will represent the most significant milestone in that program, and I think it will completely change how people think about Discoveryland. This is exactly the kind of investment in a Disneyland park that I personally have been calling for, and it gives me enormous confidence in the direction of the resort under the new creative leadership. Speaking of, I think much of this can be attributed to Michel Dendolk, who in the following morning at the D23 Imagineering Showcase brought something even more special with him. The Vice President and Creative Executive for Disneyland Paris, and none other than Tim Delaney, the man who Discoveryland was given to and created Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune in the first place. At this presentation, Tim started by sharing some personal stories about the creation of the attraction, saying that when Disney was designing Discoveryland, Tim and his team made the decision that for the first time, a Disney Tomorrowland would be populated by not generic science fiction, but by the great visionaries. Jules Verne, A.G. Wells, Leonardo da Vinci, and a little bit of George Lucas for good measure. The idea was to create what Tim called a collection of futures, buildings that represented the future as imagined at different points in history, and the result was a land that he described as timeless. The overall style for Discoveryland became what we now know as steampunk. It itself helped create that style, and you could build Discoveryland today and it would still feel completely coherent, because it was never tied to a specific vision of the future the way Tomorrowland in other parks was. We also got some new details regarding what to expect from the project, but most notably the cannon itself came up extensively, and Tim explained that the decision to have the launch happen outside the building rather than inside was made so that the guests watching from the land would be able to see the trains launch over the top of the building and fall back into it, creating amazing kinetic energy in that land. It's a spectacle in itself, and back when it opened featured an entire mini-show that happened every time the cannon launched guests to the moon. As it came alive with doors opening and closing, the loading of the bullet trains, the movement of pieces, all culminating in the huge boom of the cannon where the huge shafts would move backwards with the guests emerging from clouds of smoke. It truly was a very special feature, not just of Space Mountain, but of the entire park. However, it was also incredibly hard to maintain and slowly died off, leaving us today with a corpse of the Columbiad. However, in that same presentation, Michel confirmed on stage to great fanfare that the cannon will be fully restored to its original glory as part of this refurbishment, and that will be a personal mission of his to see it happen. Michel also confirmed that not everything inside the attraction will necessarily be 100% the same as it was before, but that the spirit of the original will absolutely live on in this version. What that means is there will be surprises, things we are yet to hear and see. What those are, we don't know yet, and honestly I think that's exactly how it should be. Part of what made the original Space Mountain so extraordinary was that nobody knew what to expect when they walked in for the first time. I hope some of that sense of discovery is preserved in how Disney reveals this one. One thing the poster does seemingly reveal is the presence of Nine-Eye, the robot companion of the Timekeeper from the defunct attraction Le Visionarium, which opened with a resort and was replaced by Buzz. If you don't know this attraction, make sure to watch my video on its past. It would be amazing to see Nine have a role here in this ride, but her presence already tells me that the project has so much love behind it. Now, Disney said that the attraction will close sometime in the second half of 2027, thanks to the rumors from Magic Focus, which was right about the project happening and being announced in 2023. This could happen in October of next year. Something that I'm personally not sure about is just for how long. In the official statement for Disney, they say that the ride will be closed for several months. That's incredibly broad and doesn't say much. According to him, this would be a very long refurbishment, reopening only in 2029, so at least somewhere in the year-and-a-half territory. This leads me to the next thing, which is, how deep will the works be? We know that the 30-year-old attraction isn't the most reliable and has seen some maintenance issues with the tracks, like most Disneyland Paris coasters. With a massive project such as this, could we be looking at a possible partial retrack of the coaster? That would make it a very large construction project, but it would also make sure the ride is ready to operate for decades to come. A similar problem is the launch. This was the first coaster that launched people at an upwards angle, and it uses a cable system to do so, like the ones from aircraft carriers. The problem is that this cable needs to be changed every 6 months, and the ride shuts its doors for several days to do so. If a partial retrack is coming, and with it countless ride tech upgrades, could we see the launch being replaced to a magnetic one? The trains appear to be the current ones, which replaced the older set in 2017. However, the concept art shows they will too be updated with at least a new design for the front car, reminiscent of the previous ones and more closely resembling the top of a bullet. Another question I have to ask is, what about the story of the attraction? We know that the spacewalk will take over part of the queue, but what could we see happening in these two Victorian-themed rooms before the loading station? I, like many, have always felt a small pre-show style addition would be lovely here, perhaps with projection mapping or similar. A question you have asked me is, what about Star Wars? Well, removing an IP and bringing back an original ride to the parks is something we are not used to with Disney, and it may be a clue of a new age for the parks. But that still leaves Star Wars with one less attraction in Paris. Well, people don't need to go far to find Star Wars, and it's still present in the back of Discoveryland with an indoor meet and greet location, a large store, and of course, Star Tours. I do think that Disney making this change makes it more likely that a true Star Wars adventure could happen sometime in the future, especially in the expansion plot behind Space Mountain. There were rumors that took the internet by storm a few weeks before D23, saying that Autopia was to be replaced by a Star Wars experience. Well, that was obviously false, and in my opinion wouldn't make sense from a location perspective, especially with that whole plot just nearby and connected to the rest of the Star Wars attractions in the park. So I think this does make it more likely that something could come in some years, but I don't think it's currently a priority. While I'm still trying to process the entire announcement and being incredibly excited for the future of this attraction I love so much, it did open up more questions than answers. I expect many of these to be answered in the coming months and year, especially during the April 12th event Disney always puts out. But as with all projects Disneyland Paris, I will be here to cover them with you. Speaking of, The Lion King got several updates, as well as a very interesting glimpse at the ride system that confirms the ride will be something completely new. And the Disneyland park is getting ready to bring a brand new and special parade. We'll cover all of this in an upcoming video, so make sure you're subscribed as not to miss any of that. And now, as always, thank you for watching, and that's a wrap.